Okay, thank you for coming, and we will start of this session of our traditional auditorium. This panel is at War, the impact on diaspora Jewish schools, and I'm pleasure to introduce Dr. Alex Thompson, the moderator. Alex Thompson is principal and managing director at Rosoff Consulting. He has published numerous articles and books about Jewish day school and how they are experienced by students, teachers, and parents. Alex was one of the first lecturers in our master program, the International Master Program in Education of the Melton Center in the University. And the most important thing, Alex was my tutor in my doctorate, and he is my friend. I want to introduce the panelists. Barbara Spielberg, she's working in the Innovative School of Temple Beit Shalom in Florida, USA. Barbara is the director of Judaic Studies and Hebrew. She's a student in our master. She was born in Argentina, like me. Nobody's perfect. I moved to Miami 26 years ago. She has been working at Temple Shalom for 12 years. 6 years ago, when the synagogue decided to open an elementary day school, Barbara was hired to teach and create the curriculum for the Judaic Studies and Hebrew program. She decided to start the MA at the Melton Center for Jewish Education, and within a year, she was promoted to the director position. She implemented a new program for Israel education that has been very successful. Barbara is currently working with Israel EdTech Pioneer Mindset, developing an educational tool called Educator that aims to integrate the dual curriculum that exists in the diaspora Jewish school with the goal of strengthening Jewish identity. The second panelist is Noemi Gozlan. She's working in Beth Emet School in Florida, USA. Noemi was born in Argentina too. This is very problematic. She made Aliyah to Israel in 1917, where she met and married 45 years ago. Her high school sweet here, Yoram. Her three children, Itai, Hassaf, and Ella, were born in Israel. In 2001, she helped build and develop the elementary division of Temple Beit Emet, where she became the director of Beit Emet Elementary School. With her desire to excel and to bring the school to higher levels, Nomi continued her studies when she graduated last March from the Hebrew University in Jerusalem with a master's degree in Jewish education in our international program. And the third panelist, is Daniela Presner from Akiva School in Tennessee, USA. Daniela is not from Argentina. Okay, good, good deed. She's a head of the school at the Akiva School in Nashville, Tennessee. Daniela received her BA from Barnard College in Religion and Dance and her MA from Vanderbilt University in Jewish Studies. She has studied at Rishab Pardes, the Harvard Graduate School of Education, was a DSLPI Fellow and received ordination at Yeshiva Maharad. Daniela currently serves on the board of the Jewish Middle School of Nashville. She has taught nationality on curricular design, teacher, child support, and differentiation, and children and spirituality. And Daniela is currently studying in our international program. The dynamica of this encounter is that I will give the moderation and the time to Alex Thompson, and next Daniela, Barbara, and Noemi will speak about 8 minutes. Then of this, afterward, your question, and at the end, Alex will decide. Okay, welcome, and Alex, your time.
Okay, thank you, Marcelo. I am certainly really pleased to have this opportunity. Barbara and Naomi were students of mine in the Melton program. I had the privilege of studying Daniela's school and writing a chapter about it in a book that came out a couple of years ago about Jewish day schools in North America. So it is really wonderful to be reunited and to have the opportunity to hear how you are dealing with a challenging time, but a time that may also be might also present opportunities for those who work in Jewish education, and hopefully we'll get to that in a moment. Marcelo asked me to take a couple of minutes to kind of share with you what I've been observing in my own work over the last 2 months that I hope will set up some themes that might come up as we hear about what's happening on the ground. Our team at Rossov Consulting had the opportunity, or we were asked by the Ministry of Diaspora Affairs to help them take the temperature of young Jews around the world in the course of the war since October the 7th. And the way we went about doing this was we actually we reached out to people who had completed surveys of ours in the years before October the 7th, whether they were participants in a Hillel program in Onward Israel, maybe they were in Australia on a program called Y2I, maybe they were in France participating in an organization called Relève, which is a university-based organization. So over the last, let's say, 3 to 5 years, we have been asking these young people various questions about their connection to Israel and about their willingness to advocate on behalf of Israel or explain Israel to others. And in many of these cases, we also asked those young people during the previous 5 years about their comfort in displaying outward Jewish signs on the street and the extent to which they are concerned about anti-Semitism in the places where they live. We have now gone back to those young people twice since October the 7th, during the 3rd week of the war and during the 6th week of the war. And what we have found is that those young people who were already relatively connected to Israel, many of them had participated in Israel-based programs, or they simply had been participants in programs on campus, with a strong Jewish content. We found that they were even more connected to Israel now than they were previously. And their concern about Israel and Israelis was even higher than it had been in the 3 to 5 years before October the 7th of 2023. We didn't find, however, that people felt more comfortable or more willing to stand up and advocate on behalf of Israel. Put it simply, they didn't become suddenly qualified to do this work, and they were, about half of them expressed a readiness to do that, about 40%, let's say. But those numbers haven't changed. Where the greatest change was, and I'm probably not going to surprise anybody here, is in people's anxieties about anti-Semitism in wherever they are in the world. They are much less willing to display outward signs of Jewishness in public Magen David, Hebrew writing, or whatever. And they all report observing, experiencing much higher levels of anti-Semitism wherever they may be. And most of these people are no longer in college. They were in college when we originally gathered data from them. But they are experiencing and seeing anti-Semitism much more widely. When we return to those people 3 weeks later, so week 6 of the war, and we asked specifically those at college, like, why do they feel less secure? And in some ways, this is some of the most interesting data. You know, we gave them a long list of things like, have you experienced anti-Semitism on campus? Do people make life difficult for you? And the most common reason that people gave was simply, there are so many people, whether students or faculty, who are pro-Palestinian on campus, that I feel insecure. The sense of somehow holding to positions that are divergent or that are outliers in the context in which they live. It might not be that those thousands of people are actively engaged in anti-Semitism. Maybe they have. There were certainly plenty of cases where this has happened. But what came across in the survey was just the sense of being countercultural, swimming against the tide as something that has unsettled them. And what I know from colleagues in Hillel is that probably associated with that, the folks at Hillel have seen a noteworthy increase in the numbers of Jewish students turning up on a Friday night and participating in Jewish programs. Those Jewish students, faced by hundreds, thousands who hold views different from them, are coming home, as it were, right? We don't know for how long, but it's striking that they are drawn closer to being community with other Jews. So those are things I personally have learned from survey work with Jewish young adults between the ages of 21 and close to 40 now, actually. I'm hoping that those findings resonate with some of the things we're about to hear. The data don't come from a day school context, but hopefully they help provide a context for us as we explore further what it's like running a Jewish school, a Jewish institution at this time, especially when your immediate responsibilities are with young children. But as we know, those young children come from families, and I imagine those parents and their broader families are also people of concern for you at this time. Okay, so I don't know who's going first here. I'm gonna hand over to Naomi. Is that okay? You're on mute.
Thank you for having me this morning. I have to say that, you know, when I was thinking of how to introduce this and how to bring it, I thought about different levels that October 7th affected our community. And the first one I want to say that was the emotional. The chaos that all of a sudden, the strongest Israel, that nothing can happen and is secured, and this is our land. And all of a sudden, it created a heightened sense of fear and anxiety among the community. So the first thing that we felt is how to bring the normalcy around, to see and to give them the strength that we are opening our doors and in welcoming the students and having that smile on our face. We have a large amount of Israelis on our staff and also Israeli families. Many of them men in those families were deployed, so they had to go back. So we had another level that we have to take care of these families and these children not knowing what's going to happen to their fathers. So there were emotional was the first thing that we wanted to concentrate. I must say that parents were very, very, very thankful on a daily basis when they saw the staff opening the doors for the cars during drop-off, that we're putting that smile to the children, and parents constantly thanking us for doing that on a daily basis. The emotional impact was in many levels also. We're talking the children, our staff, the parents, and at the same time, there was a community of people. What can we do? What can we do? We want to do. We were invaded with emails from so many different directions to support, to give back. How can we influence and make an impact from here and help Israel from the distance, from the far? So we were also not only the normalcy, but how do we start putting those emails and the sense of wanting to be involved and to help in an order, so people will not be pulled to so many directions. There was a sense also of how can we bring the community together and make it as an impact that we are together in that. So they needed the sense of bringing the community from so many directions, so many, like you felt in Israel that there was no more Orthodox and Reform, and all of a sudden the community is together, and they were the ability to be in one room all together for one purpose. And one of the most important things was the increase in security. Because when something happens in Israel, immediately affects, as soon as a terrorist attack for anything happening in Israel, we know that on that week, we have to increase security on our campuses. So we had to bring more, officers, and we have the sheriff, and we have the highway patrol, and we have our own private security. So the parents feel that to give them the feeling that they are safe to bring their children to our school. So those were the first priorities we needed to be involved and to influence and to give them the security that we are all embracing them. At the same time, we have the children. We had to add more of in our own curriculum, which we teach Judaic studies, we teach about Israel, but now it's on a different level, and everything has to be developmentally appropriate for our students. I'm willing to say more. I want to give also Barbara and to Daniela the opportunity to say, because I have more to say in those things, but I want to give them also in the first impact. The first impact, normalcy was waving all above us and be transparent. Communication was very important on a daily basis. Communicating via any way we could, if it was one-on-one, by phone, by emails, but on a daily basis. Since then, we have the connection and the ability to bring them together and communicate, opening our channels, being open, our doors all the time open with any concern, any questions, and giving the reinforcement that we are here for everyone in our community. And what you're saying, Dr. Thompson, is so important, because giving the community also the knowledge how to stand, how to answer, what to say when so many around them, neighbors coming and supporting, but at the same time asking questions, and they didn't know how to answer those questions. So we felt also the necessity to continuously educating and giving them the current events on a daily basis, So I want to give the floor to Daniela and to Barbara to also express, give them the opportunity to say.
Okay, thank you, Naomi, and thank you for your generosity in giving space to your colleagues. I think you've really already indicated like how powerful it is to hear from people on the front lines in our schools. So many thanks for that. Daniela, shall I turn to you next? You're on mute.
Sorry about that. You know, for us, many of the same things that Naomi mentioned were very important. I'm not going to repeat those. This weekend, I was reading some thoughts by Rabbi Sachs, and he speaks about the difference between fear and distress and the impact of that difference. And fear is, he explains that fear is really when you're afraid for your own life. And distress is something different. It's when you're not just afraid of your own life, but you're afraid of either the impact that your life will have on somebody else's life, or you're worried about the lives of others whom you care deeply about. And I think a lot of what we've thought about, a lot of the questions that we're trying to work on every single day at Akiva is how to respond to those who are in distress, and helping this not become a moment of trauma, but a moment of secure growth. Because it is very, very complicated. Like Naomi, we have families, teachers, parents, students who have all lost people already, and also who have people out there on the front lines. And that's not easy at all. And we were speaking briefly at the start, and just talking about how this isn't a sprint, it's a marathon, and we really have to create the structures to support our faculty and our students and our parents really in the community long term. So for us, there were a number of questions that we sort of asked ourselves to think about how to put things into place. The first was, what does it mean for our community to be safe physically and emotionally? So really making sure that we had mental health providers on site and available, and explaining where they were and how they could be reached, both some within our school and some without of our school. Also, immediately, we also were in constant communication with the Metro Police Department, and in addition to our campus security, now have police presence on our campus whenever students are present, which is a huge change. And a piece of that is also, how do we communicate with our children and our families so that they both feel safe, but also they don't feel scared? Because we know, especially from the COVID crisis, the impact of fear on learning, the psychological impact. And that was something that we're always thinking about, is how can we minimize fear, but also still give our children the knowledge that they need at their appropriate age levels, so that they can really move forward in a way that feels productive for them and feels like they are able to make a difference, because even these small children can make a really incredibly beautiful difference. So that was the first part. The second piece of this is really, how can we prepare our teachers and parents and children to have the stamina and the patience through this? There's so much that's unknown, and that unknown can cause greater stress. And so a piece of this is really, what were the things that we were putting into place to care? Whether we were writing notes to our teachers, or writing notes to our families, or having one-on-one conversations with our families, whether we were bringing families in for a musical tefillah so that they could be sitting alongside their children and praying together. Whether our children were taking pictures and videos of themselves supporting Israel and sending it to different schools in Israel and family members in Israel, just so that they had that exchange, that back and forth. And also, there are a number of Shabbat dinners that are hosted, even for Israelis who aren't necessarily connected to the school, but really just bringing in the entire community to make sure that everybody feels seen and heard. I think the other piece of this that was really interesting for us in Nashville is that unlike, places like Miami, New York, Chicago, the concept of what it means to be a Jewish day school for other independent and public schools is really not present. And so there were so few schools that initially reached out when we were going through this. And that was incredibly surprising and very, very lonely. And so a piece of what we really needed to endeavor to do was then to educate our independent schools and have really open conversations with them about not just about our graduates, but about students who they have within their schools and should be reaching out to their families and supporting them, and about the intense loneliness that those kids could be feeling, not having addressed the issue. And then also having really open conversations with schools who refused to call a spade and just spoke about how this is a conflict for everyone at this moment. And I think it is a conflict for everyone at this moment, but it's also important to acknowledge there's a difference between a terrorist act and an act that perhaps expresses a human right. And so that piece of the conversation has been really hard and ongoing. And I can happily share that many schools have reached out since then to our teachers. We've had notes and fruit and things coming in just to share their love, but it is definitely an ongoing process and not something that we can take for granted. And then I would say that the last piece of this for us is really making sure that all of our families, our school is a very, very, very diverse school. We have people from all across the political spectrum, people from all across the denominational spectrum. And so thinking carefully about how we can ensure that every person feels a part of the conversation. And we have families who have been building infrastructure in Gaza to try to increase trade in that space, and who have seen their work completely demolished, and families who have people and have lost people on the front lines there, and families families who have multiple relatives in Israel and have lost people there. So it's been a very careful balance, but really, really important to focus on how can we stay together in this really difficult moment in history. And then, the final piece is really, how can we teach our children? How can we give them the knowledge to have the information that they need to have really meaningful conversations with others, but also that they can have those conversations with deep pride and courage. And that's something that we're always thinking about and isn't a given. And I think, as Alex pointed out, that courage is not straightforward.
Thank you, Daniela. Always exciting to hear about what's going on at the Akiva School, got to say. It's been a few years since I hung out there. Okay, I am going to hand over to Barbara now to hear how she's experiencing things.
Okay, so in my case, how it affected us personally with first teachers and students. We have students that, of course, they have family living in Israel, which they were worried for their families. We have teachers, including myself, especially. I have my father-in-law, I have cousins living in Israel. So I was very, very affected. So I would say, honestly, that the first week, it was really hard for me to teach. Like to lead tefillah without crying. It was really hard. I was really emotional. Like we will sing the Atikva and I will start crying. It was really, really, really hard. Like kids will come in the morning and will hug me, like, that I lost somebody, like they already knew like that there was an anguish in me. So it was very moving because they could feel, and they will hug me as I feel what you're feeling. And so it was very, very emotional, very, it was very hard, I would say. And then obviously after that first weeks of being really hard, it came the phase of, okay, what can we do to do something? How can we, everybody felt like the kids especially, right? What can we do they feel obligated to do something to help? And they start to have conversations about how they could help to, gather money. And what happened here in Miami Beach is that we have 7 firefighters from Miami Beach that went to Israel to basically replace firefighters of Israel that were called to the to enlist to the IDF. So they were not Jewish firefighters from here. So to send each firefighter from here, from Miami Beach, it was $5,000. So the school helped to pay for 2 of those firefighters. So the kids did several things in order to help pay for those 2 firefighters. So they sold books, they created bookmarks with Jewish prayers that they sold. So they were moved to do all these things to gather money and send these firefighters. And that was very moving because they felt that they were part of this help. And they wrote letters for soldiers in Israel. They created videos. We have one of the teachers that her sister has she has a show in Israel because of the kids couldn't go to school. So there was like this show for the kids that were not going to school, that were teaching through the show. And in between the teaching, they were showing like messages, and the kids will send messages and songs, and they did a bunch of those, and they felt that they were, connecting with the kids in Israel, and that was very important for them. Another thing that it was important for them, they have this connection with, and I think she's still there, Talia. She's our Shinshin from Israel. She comes every Monday to our school, and Talia, her father actually is in the IDF, and the kids always ask her questions about, especially the older kids, about what's going on with the war, and they felt that it was a connection that they needed to have, to be able to ask questions to somebody directly. How's your father? How's everybody there? So that was great to have Leah every Monday with us, and she's our IDF connection to the kids. The other aspect that it was very sensitive, I would say, was parents very sensitive about the information that the kids were receiving, especially if they were in kindergarten, first grade, second grade. So parents didn't want their kids to be exposed to what was going on. But the problem is that, and of course, we as teachers, unless kids ask, we wouldn't say anything. Of course, they knew that there's a war, but even if they would ask, kindergarten, first grade, second grade, we wouldn't talk, but the kids will talk among each other. And the issue is that some families are more open to talk about what's going on, and the kids will come and we'll talk. And I think last 2 weeks, we have second graders talking about the hostages exchange and how it wasn't fair, and they're talking about it, and we're just there listening. So how you balance the information of what the kids know and talking among each other, and what can be talked and not. So that was a very sensitive issue. How you manage that? You let them talk, you tell them that they cannot talk about it. So that was hard for us to balance, because then parents will complain, why you guys are talking about war issues at school? And we were like, no, we are not talking about that. The kids are talking among each other. They're talking on the playground. They come and ask. So that was a very sensitive issue that was very hard. I, have to talk to rabbis. How do I manage this? How these parents don't want the kids to be exposed, but the kids are talking to other kids. How do we? So that was one of the things that it was very hard for me, how to balance that aspect. And I'm very curious to know how Daniela and Nazi, how you guys did manage this information with the students, and parents. That was one of the most difficult tasks that we have in the school. And then also with teachers, for example, the teachers that are not Jewish. We have some teachers, like, even if they are Jewish, like pro-Palestine comments, and how do you manage that? How do you manage that information? How do you educate teachers that have different opinions of the situation? That also was something that, we have teachers that they have conversations that were not good conversations, and they're not talking to each other right now because they have different opinions, and that was also something that that I'm wondering how you guys are managing these type of issues in the schools.
Barbara,
Yes.
your time is over.
Yes.
I would like to add one thing that was interesting. We partner with a school in the north part of Israel, in Nesher, by Haifa. And what we did during this time, it's our sixth graders with their sixth graders. So we had a meeting, a mifgash together between our sixth graders and theirs, just to open the platform to ask each other questions. And it was so interesting because our students were able to see it happen in their homes. They couldn't because they weren't going to school. So they Zoomed into our Zoom, and they were showing that they were sitting in their mamad, in their safety room. Our students didn't understand what is a mamad. So they took visually to show them how many minutes they have from the moment the sirens is out, and they need to run to the mamad, and what is a mamad, and how they close the mamad, and how. So it was really an opening eyes for our students to learn all that. And the interesting thing came after, when the children in Israel asked our students, how many minutes do you have from the moment you hear the siren and the moment that you have a mamad? And our students were saying, we only have it if it's a hurricane. They couldn't understand that this is not the reality that every child is facing in the world. So it was an interesting, so deep discussion that then we divided all the Zoom into small meetings, and we had moderators, teachers, and the director from there, and myself, that we were able to monitor those small questions, the small groups, and the children were asking each other questions. It was amazing, because then they were in the front line learning from what the children and their emotional coping mechanism and how they were taking it, and they were expressing and teaching our students here. That was amazing, that part. That we were able, and today actually there is another group of sixth graders with their sixth graders that they are cooking together. The Israelis are making latkes, and our children are making sufganiyot, and all through Zoom and teaching each other. It's really, it is really moving, all these things to see, because the parents are involved as well. So parents here are able to ask questions to the parents there, and it is really, in times like this, you know, we can open our curriculum and teach, but that's what makes the difference and the impact, to know each other on a personal level, and individual. So I just wanted to make to add something to that.
So I'm going to thank the three of you for conveying so vividly what it is that you're doing, what you're wrestling with, what you're attempting to accomplish, what you have to do differently. I want to give others here an opportunity to react to things they've heard, or to ask questions. I don't know everybody in the room, so I don't know how many people are able to talk from similar experiences, or just curious about how things are playing out. I suggest you use the hand raise icon, or any other kind of icon, to let us know that you want to jump in, and we'll give people a chance to begin a conversation here. Please, Javier. Yeah.
Thank you. I don't see the yellow hand. Okay. I compare the current situation in Israel with the pandemic. Everything changed in one day. Everything. All the leaders made decisions, but it was not possible to make decisions with destroyed emotions. I spoke with Rabbi Mario Raxman in Aventura, Florida, about that. The question is, did emotional suffering affect the curriculum, or what decisions to change were made until today?
Thank you. Let's hear a couple of other questions before we go back to our panelists, but I think that's a wonderful question to be asking.
Thank you.
Anybody else want to jump in? If not, I've got to jump in with some questions of my own. I think, Barbara, you really kind of pointed to one of the most challenging issues of the moment, and around how do we talk to our students about really difficult subject matter. And you mentioned specifically, I don't know if you mentioned hostages specifically. I think maybe you did. Right. It's a question I know. My 6-year-old grandchild is not aware of such things. Right. But at what stage, what age should we be talking about such things with our children? And let me throw another difficult question out there. I'm wondering how aware are your students of the upsurge of anti-Semitism? And I know that among high school students, for sure, many are asking, why do they hate us, right? What is it that we've done, right? So I'm curious, what are the kinds of challenging questions students are asking you, and in what ways do you talk about these kinds of issues? Javier gave you a fantastic question to start with, so any of the three of you, feel free to jump in.
Thank you. Really appreciate it, Dr. Claus.
So I think that the first question, you know, about hostages, of what Barbara brought up, I met with my whole team, and we have in our team also our psychologist, that she is part, social emotional learning is part of our curriculum. So the psychologist meets once a week with every single class to have bring all kinds of dilemmas. So it was before the war and even now. And I think that we paying attention to each child. It's not a conversation, and we decided as a team that it's not a conversation to open to the whole class, because every child is on a different understanding, and not even questioning the same questions. Some of them are not even involved at all. If I'm talking the young ones. So the primary K through second grade, we left it on a personal individual level, that if a child and if we hear anything, that's when we are going to bringing the parent. As I said on my presentation, that transparency was very important. So leaving the parents also that they came and there was an open communication between the parents and the psychologist and myself. So if they had questions how to deal with them at home, we were giving the parents the ability and to reinforce what they want to know and how they want to explain. With the older children, because we have more in the upper grades, also more Israeli children that they were bringing and hearing the news there were open all day long at home, and they were, more exposed to all these questions. They were bringing it up. And again, like, I'll give you an example. We gave them the opportunity to be part of the march in Washington, D.C., because we send people to the march. We send staff to the march, and some parents were there as well. So we gave them the opportunity to watch it, to ask the question, to listen to the speakers there. It was so interesting, the question that they brought up. And we actually, instead of just speaking to them and introducing to them, we were more like first attentive for what they wanted to hear. We didn't want to give them a full explanation if that wasn't needed. So if they had questions, we answered the questions. We were very honest, very transparent with the children, without, of course, giving them detailed things like, or showing them too many things, but we gave them answers so they felt involved, empowered. We, not like Barbara, we don't have in our staff such a diverse staff, so we weren't exposed to that, luckily. But so I don't know what to answer on that, but I am sure that they had neighbors. And actually, we have only one non-Jewish staff member, and she became so pro-Israel, wanted to learn so much, and was so supportive that she went to the other extreme, that we felt like she's embracing everybody. So that was our experience.
Thank you. Daniela, do you want to jump in and remind you of Javier's question about the impact of curriculum of trauma, really?
Yeah, I think, we consciously decided, and I know you compared it to COVID. In some ways with COVID, we said, okay, part of the curriculum that was planned may not be learned, but in this opportunity, they're going to be learning other things that are very, very other skills, other dispositions that are equally important in their lives. And so, there were a number of Jewish studies classes in our 5th and 6th grades that were 100% changed and committed really solely to discussing what's going on in Israel, helping children make sense of what was going on, and also helping them feel like they could be agents for change, which is a really important piece of feeling like you have some control over a situation. In the younger classes, K to 4, again, we were having pretty similar conversations where students were really being interacted with on a one-on-one basis, depending on what their needs were, just because the news was really so intense, and it was really impossible for some students to experience and understand the gravity of the situation. And because we were trying to protect certain students who we felt really couldn't handle the gravity of what was going on, and honor their parents' decisions as well. But yes, I think there was definitely an impact on the curriculum. We did not at all feel like it was a loss, and we just looked really carefully at, what was to gain from the experience, and also, where we were going to alter or change what we were talking about, so that we could make sure that what we needed to cover could also be covered, just approached differently. And then I know, Alex, you had a question about how do we talk to our students about this really difficult subject matter, and also, are we aware of our our children aware of the upsurge of anti-Semitism. I think what has been really different about this conflict is, our kindergartners through sixth graders all experience Yom HaZikaron together. They all go through the same exact experience. We don't separate the tekes that we have for them. Our older students definitely have greater in-depth conversations on those days. But I think what was profoundly different was that here was a space not, years ago, but happening currently on the ground right now. And how do we have conversations with even our youngest children about what war is? And I would say again and again, the biggest piece of this was helping the children feel like they were a part of the conversation. So our first graders actually ran a lemonade stand for Israel, for the people of Israel. They felt like they wanted to show their love and their care, and they organized lemonade and sold it to the school, and then decided where they wanted to send their money. And they decided they wanted to focus on specifically the children in Israel. So not talking about what's going on politically, not speaking about the atrocities and the horrors, but really helping them see that just like they have people who care and love them here, that it's our responsibility to care and love when any member of our community is hurting across the world.
Thank you. I'm going to turn to Barbara, and in fact, Danielle, you already started to answer a question that Shelley posted in the chat, which was if the three of you could share more concrete actions or examples of concrete actions that you do, that you're using to help students feel and be helpful. But first of all, Barbara, yeah.
So first to answer changes of the curriculum. So for example, you were saying if they feel the anti-Semitism, one of the things that I have observed is that, for example, we have 2 students that now are wearing tzitzis that were not wearing tzitzis before. 5 students now wearing kippah that were not wearing kippah before. So we are seeing more like more kids wearing Magen David's. Like there's this and I don't know if it's coming from the parents or if it's something that because one student is doing it and the other are doing it too, and they feel more connected, more that it's kind of like contagious. But they're we're talking so much about Israel and doing things for Israel that it's kind of like the community is all about it. There's so many flags around us, and they're it's so. And we're reading a lot of stories, especially now with Hanukkah. There's all these stories about, there's the specific that the Marranos, that they were hiding the religion and how, and we're talking about what they were hiding and should we hide? And the conversation opened to like, should you hide? When now we don't need to hide anymore. So they were talking about why now we shouldn't hide anymore. And so they opened the conversation about why do we need to hide and why we shouldn't hide? Well, no, we don't need to hide anymore. So they don't feel that there's any need, at least at this point, they don't feel that there is a danger. They don't feel the danger at this point. Well, at least here in Miami, they don't feel a danger. They don't feel yet the anti-Semitism that there is, so they don't feel that way. So that, and then when you were saying about if they know about the hostage situation, I'm telling you, like these second graders, I was observing the conversation. They were basically discussing if it was fair, the one exchange of 1 for 3. It's like, I don't think it's fair. It's 1, why 1 for 3? And then this little girl was saying, like, it's not only that it's not fair, do you understand that those 3 are not innocent, they're criminals? So like it was 2 second graders talking, and I was like, I mean, of course, obviously that parents are open, but like the level of knowledge, and other kids were listening there. And of course, I'm like just they're sitting in a couch and they're having the conversation. I'm just there listening and not saying anything. And I left it like that. So, yeah.
Thank you. Okay.
I want to bring one thing. Luckily in Florida, especially in South Florida, we have, what happened is that we had a whole meeting with leaders right after that. We met with the governor of Florida to hear our voices, and he actually heard us. And he was very, I mean, we are lucky here in the state of Florida because we were, with officials, electives, and that advocated for the Jewish community. And he was very verbal to express his intention to kick out any student in the universities that they will be pro-Hamas and they will be protesting. And he immediately was very attentive to the Jewish community to give us that he paid for the security of each Jewish organization. So we all have paid by the state of Florida an officer there. So we were able to express, we were like with the governor, around 1,300 people in that meeting, and he was like astounded. He was so surprised to see so many Jewish people coming together from different denominations and expressing one solidarity. And he heard us, and he immediately was active. So yes, we do see here and there some anti-Semitism, but I think that our students, especially in South Florida, they feel more the ability to go out with their Magen David. Though we do hear parents, it's all about social media. How much do you follow social media and you go through the fears of social media, or you immediately ask the real people what to do or how to react. Is that truth or not truth? So it all depends on that as well. So one of the things also that we, I know that somebody asked here, what else are we doing with our students? So for an example, our PTA on an annual basis, this was the time 2 weeks ago that they throw a party for the students. But we didn't feel that this is the right time to throw a party for students. So what do? And all the students were waiting for that special event. So we connected that with the displaced children in Israel, that they all need new toys because they don't have toys. And so every child went with their parents to the shopping, and hundreds of toys they brought as an entry to that party, and they were all taking pictures around the toys that they all brought, and they felt so strong that they were partying, but they are going to also give the opportunities to children in Israel they will be having new toys that they brought because they wanted to share their happiness with them. At the same time, from kindergarten to 8th grade, all our students were writing letters to soldiers, to displaced children. And through a mission, there was a few, I think that last week, there were a group of rabbis that went to Israel for a mission, and we sent all these cards. So when they met the units in Israel or they met displaced children, they gave them the letters from our students. So they felt that the connection through doing directly things that they can be sharing with them. This is a part of all the other things like helping with the agriculture. So for an example, the Shomer HaChadat.
Maybe I'm going to jump in to give Daniela and Barbara a chance.
Sure. Yes, sure.
If you have additional examples of practical things that you've done to empower the students. Yeah.
Sure. I think actually, I almost think we could turn the question a little bit, because I think you've had a number of examples of some practical things. Also, I think it's really valuable to listen to the children at play and listen to their writing, listen to their words. Like Barbara highlighted that a little bit, the things that they're speaking about. But really, you know, recently we had a publishing party for a second grade class, and they were supposed to write fantasies. Every single one of their fantasies, with the exception of 2, were about war. Cotton candy versus, you know, grapes, who's going to win in this fantasy, and creating these characters. But that is therapy. I'm sorry, Brian, can you repeat your question?
No, I think
Okay.
he was
So, you know, listening to their writing, looking at what they're reading, creating space for those conversations to happen really naturally, for those feelings to come out. We noticed that our 3rd graders at recess started playing war. They had never played war before. So at first it was like, this is their natural expression of outwardly expressing what they're feeling inside, and making sure that then it's done in a way that is safe and productive, and then cutting it off when it's no longer safe or productive. But I think, you know, sometimes we talk a lot about agency and the importance of giving children opportunities, but also as educators, one of the most powerful things we can do is just listen.
Thank you. Thank you. Barbara, do you want to add anything on this, in this question?
I agree with Daniela. A lot of things that, especially with the younger kids, through drawings, what they were drawing to the soldiers, you know, parents suddenly were all concerned because the kids were drawing tanks and firearms, and they're like, why are my kids drawing these? And it's like, we were not talking about anything. This is what they're drawing because this is what they're concerned about, and because they're, you know, the kids are talking about this, and this is how they're bringing out their, you know, what they're concerned about, and that's how kids are expressing what's going on in their heads. You know, that's the way they express. This is kindergarten, 1st graders, and they were like, you know, drawing, because it was drawings and letters for the IDF. They cannot write letters. They were making drawings, and the drawings were drawings of, you know, soldiers and tanks, and you know, and parents are like, why is my kid drawing arms? What are you guys talking about? We're not talking about anything. The goal was like to make drawings, and that's what your kids are drawing. But this is the way, it's listening to them, letting them express themselves the way, with the language that they have, and drawing is the way they're expressing. And I think that that's very, very important at this, you know, at this point, to let them express themselves.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I'm going to call your attention to another question in the chat about is there a place, where does God come into all of this? Right at this time, a question from Bracha. How do you incorporate God into the conversations? And the idea that our spiritual actions can impact our brethren in Israel, is particularly those of you who are working with diverse student bodies, right? Is there a way to incorporate those kinds of ideas? Any of you, feel free to jump in.
I actually, it's interesting because on Friday we were talking about with my 5th graders, we were talking about Hanukkah and the miracles of Hanukkah. We're talking about the miracle. It wasn't only the miracle of the oil, but the miracle of winning that war. And one of the students were saying like, and do you know that there are miracles happening in this war too? Oh yeah, so tell me about the miracles. And so he starts saying some of the miracles that he heard that were happening, and it's Hashem, you know, Hashem did this, and Hashem did this. And so he basically was saying about, you know, the stories of there was you know, the tunnel, and then this person that would look like a rabbi say, do not enter the tunnel, and then so, you know, the different stories that the parents told the kids, and they were saying like, it's Hashem. So Hashem, you know, how God did miracles. And then another kid says like, yeah, and my father told me that in the war of 1967, also there were miracles too. And so that was a very recurrent thing that they were talking about. Yeah, God is with us, and so that's how the kids are bringing God into this into the conversation, that God is here to do miracles and to.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Daniela, do you want to respond to this?
Sure. I think a piece of it is opening their eyes to this, again, the miracles that are happening around the world. Like a really powerful conversation I remember was just showing our 5th and 6th graders pictures of Israeli flags on prominent buildings around the world, and talking outwardly with them about, what did this look like in 1950? Do you think it would have looked like this? Or in 1940, would it have looked like 1948? Would it have looked like this? And talking about covert and overt expressions of support. And I think looking for God in these hard moments, like Barbara said, sharing stories where the unexpected happens. And also, Lisa Miller, in her book on encouraging spirituality in children, talks about teaching children to see the unexpected. So, and adults also, helping children recognize when there are these deep moments of spirituality. Sometimes we just walk right past them, but how do we help build greater awareness of these spaces? And also, just directly to Bracha's question, I think there are a number of initiatives happening that we are able to share with our children and encourage them to take part in. So, for example, there are Mishnayot being learned in memory of a soldier who passed, and giving children the opportunity to learn, like, what does it mean to learn a Mishnah in memory of somebody else? Or people are baking challah to be thinking about the hostages. So giving our children those experiences, that joint spiritual commitment. And like I already said, musical tefillah, bringing our parents in for times with our children. But also we have that with our children on their own as well, as, thinking, what does it mean when we say Matir Asurim? Like, how do we interpret that with our kids? And which of our children can we really have conversations about that with? And why can that be a really beautiful conversation?
Thank you.
We have on a weekly basis Kabbalat Shabbat, where we invite also the parents to be part of. And that's our community all together through prayers and singing, like what Daniela and Barbara said, singing with, in a different way. And I have to say that in the past weeks, the energy and it is different. It elevated to a different level. The level of everybody, like, it's so easy for some middle schoolers sometimes to shut down and not participate, and you have to encourage them. It's not happening anymore. The level of energy and the need that every one of them needs to be participating and singing all together and being with this all together, it's really mesmerizing. It's beautiful to see and to hear them. That's
Okay. Thank you. Okay, I'm gonna jump in because I have basically one more question, and Nomi, you kind of set it up. My question is actually whether, or what opportunities do you see this moment offering for you, your colleagues, and your schools?
It is our synagogue is a Reform synagogue, and the school is a community school. In the school, we have people from the Orthodox, from Orthodox families, all the way to completely not religious at all. And I think that this is an opportunity, the bringing together and the connection with Israel. All these years, I'm 30 years in this community. And one of the questions that I always ask myself, how do we bring the diaspora Jews who are not Orthodox to love and be devoted to Israel in a way that it is without, I mean, we can disagree with so many things, but still understanding that without Israel, there is no existence for all of us. And that's the major question that I always ask myself in every single way that I meet with different educators or different adults. I'm involved in my community. I take women through the Momentum organization. I take them to Israel. I'm trying to bring them together. And there is, you know, the aspect of how do we devote and we connect to Israel, not only in time of war, where all the Jews are together, and in regular day to day, to support and to see Israel as part of our lives. That's the major question that I struggle, and I want, you know, I'm opening to all. I mean, that's my major.
Okay, thank you. Barbara, do you want to go next?
Yeah, so actually, to me, I feel that actually one of my the project that I'm doing that is called Educator is basically connecting the secular subjects that you know in the diaspora in the schools. We have the two different curriculums, the Judaic studies curriculum and the secular curriculums that they don't talk to each other. So this that I'm trying to do is that having those curriculums talk to each other, and I think that if we would have more of that, then the Jewish identity of students and in general will be stronger and will continue. And I think that that's something that we should work harder, and I think that that's something that we should try to implement more. That I think that the Jewish education should be more integrated into everything, and we see it now that Israel is in because of the war, it's in everything, and we see how everybody's kind of like breeding Israel, and it's you can feel it, right? You can feel it in Tefillah, Kabbalah, Shabbat. Everybody's feeling it, and I think that if we integrate a little bit more, I think that the unity is going to be even stronger, and the Jewish identity is gonna be even stronger, and I think that we need that.
Okay, thank you. Daniela.
I think, you know, for us, obviously lots of opportunities in terms of being more strategic about curriculum and thinking about how we continue to form and build identities in a changing world, you know, that curriculum is not stagnant. But I think also just continuing to encourage these open conversations between people with really, really different ideas and allowing those conversations to extend past the school building. So how can we bring those conversations and different people to the Shabbat table, for example, as like a space outside of the school for community, so that the community kind of extends past the school building. And I think, you know, the thing that's really at the top of my mind right now is, you know, what opportunities does this provide us to give our children the practice to have the courage to stand up for themselves in difficult situations. We teach them all the time to stand up for others, and they do this all the time upon graduation. They're not afraid to stand up for others. And I think we have to consciously help them recognize what it means to stand up for themselves and practice those opportunities before they go out into that world.
Thank you. That's a really big idea to be finishing with. And I want to thank the three of you for really taking us inside your institutions and enabling us to get a sense of what are both the challenges and where there are places of opportunity. I think it was important to kind of finish with some positives here, and clearly there are positives. If it's easier running tefillah in a day school right now, given the decades during which it was the worst possible thing to be doing, that's certainly a positive. So really, thank you to the three of you, and thank you everybody else for being here throughout, and thank you for some great questions that enabled us to get to really important subject matter. Marcelo, I'm going to hand it back to you.
Yes, and okay, and thank you, the four. Okay, Alex, Barbara, Daniela, and me. I thank you for all the participants that most of you stayed until this moment. Is very important for all of us, and we will share in a few days the link to of the recorded session, and we will invite you to our next conference of this auditorium that our program on International Melton Program in Jewish Education is organizing each month. Okay. Okay, that's all.
Thank you.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you